Not the news that any of us really expected to hear just a couple days ago, but we heard it, and there's a lot of questions going into the quarterback room this season and for the seasons beyond. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors, BetOnline. BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right now to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right away from your home. Head to betonline.ag today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. If you're, for some reason, an NFL player, please do not use BetOnline to bet on NFL games. Just need to, I guess, throw that out as a disclaimer now. That's 2 years in a row. But this is a... Listen, I thought we were going to have a different podcast today. That is coming in the future, Very fluid here at Charge On. But we had some other news come through that I don't think any of us were expecting. But before we get into that, good friend of ours, Tyler Karen, has been kind enough to join us. He texted us right away, pretty much right after the news dropped, and said, are you guys going to rant? Because I have a lot to get off my chest. And I said, no better place to do it than on our show. And he's always welcome on our show. So Tyler, how are you doing, my friend? Obviously, never like to talk about this type of news, but how are you doing? Good to see you on the show again. Missed you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I haven't been on since I think it was the SMU game last season, and leading into that one too, I was like texting you. It's like, Sean, I gotta come on at some point. Like I got things that I need to say, and it seems like every time it's, are we ranting yet? Are we ranting? Are the people sick of hearing Nick rant? Do they want a different voice to back up Nick? So here we are. Initially, right when I saw the tweet from Tommy, I was pissed immediately. It was my very first thing, not so at Tommy, but just at the whole situation as a whole, which we'll get into that more. And I've had kind of the whole 24 hours now, a little bit more, to kind of dissect everything. So things to argue on both sides of it. But yeah, overall, not the best feeling in the world when you check your phone and you see that the quarterback of the future enters the transfer portal.
Yeah, not the greatest. And I think I have a lot to dissect. I think we all do. And I will say, usually we all have very similar opinions. I think we're all going to have very vastly different opinions. But Nick, I want to go to you because, I think you're usually smart. You have your moments where you're not, but it's great to actually have you on this one because I think UCF fans specifically, we all know because we're a part of the fandom, they can get a little too high at moments, and they can get a little too low. And I think it's good because I think we have three level-headed UCF fans who can really give solid opinions. And Nick, I think you are one of them, surprisingly. But how are you doing? Your Lightning got their ass whooped last night, recording this on Friday. It was a pretty bad. So I know your Rays are doing good, so that's a positive. But how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. I told you right before we came on, Brandon Lau, walk-off home run. My Rays are doing very well, 17-3. Let me boast for a second right there. It's a shame that you brought up my Lightning. It's a shame that you started this out by bringing up my Lightning, as Tyler's Bruins are up like 2-0 right now. Not what I needed to see.
This is a big commitment to me. I had the bees in this third period right now, up 2-0, and then we had the Celtics just close out in Atlanta. But that's an L, so we don't need to talk about that. But shows how badly I needed to be on this podcast here tonight, Tyler, and record while two Boston teams are in the playoffs right now.
I'm a Bruins fan as well, so surprisingly, I only watch hockey during the playoffs, so not as big as Tyler, but I'm supporting the Celtics. I'm supporting the Bruins. But obviously doing better than the Lightning, no question about that. I know, Nick, you are just... It's a rough pod for you having us both on. But let's get into it. Obviously, not much needs to be said. You guys all know the news. Tommy Castellanos is transferring. Obviously, it was a shocker amongst the UCF fandom community because a week prior, he was saying that he's the future of this program and that regardless of if he starts this year or next year, it doesn't matter to him. He's in here for the long haul. I think there's three things. There's three potential answers or the reasoning behind this. One, NIL. I guess it's UCF wasn't paying him, and he wants to get paid a lot more money. And he all asked to get more, and they said no. I would say that's the third option. I don't think it was NIL. Two, they told him JRP is starting this year, and he was pissed off and said, I'm going to leave. I want to go start this year. I think I deserve it. I think that's the second option. I think the most likely option, and I'm really curious, it's going to bring great discussion, is coaching staff said, we don't want you playing quarterback. We want to move you to a wide receiver or some other skill position. Because he liked a couple tweets. I don't know if you guys saw. He did like a couple tweets from a couple UCF accounts saying where they were like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. There had to have been something said behind closed doors that made him do this. And he liked two of those tweets. So I think, and I watched in the spring game, and he's really small. And not saying he's not talented, but there's some times that he can't see over the lineman. He has to get out of the pocket to see down the field. And we didn't see spring practice, right? So we have no idea how good he did. Coaches raved about him in practice. But the vibe that with him leaving that I'm getting is the coaches did not feel comfortable or were not necessarily sold on him being the quarterback of the future, and he decided, I'm going to go play quarterback. So, Tyler, we'll start with you. I mean, that is kind of my take. I'm thinking after this spring, which it's confusing. I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm guessing there would be no other reason for him to leave when you know he most likely would be the starter next year, unless the coaches came and said, we don't think you're going to be our quarterback. We want to move you somewhere or go transfer. What do you kind of see out of this, and what's your take on why he transferred ultimately?
No, I think that first option of moving him to a different skills position, JRP is the superstar of UCF's campus right now. He's a superstar of UCF athletics social media. You see the videos of him going and playing center field and then getting in a golf cart, driving over to the football stadium for the spring game. We saw he missed the bus when they were playing down south, so he hopped in a car and drove himself down south from football practice. JRP is that sign and kiss my baby right now status on UCF's campus. So it's kind of clear cut. He is going to be the starting quarterback when this fall rolls around. And you put yourself in Tommy's shoes. You come in as a freshman. Clearly last year, JRP is the guy. Malzahn got his SEC quarterback guy. So, okay, you're a freshman and you sit behind, you learn some things from JRP, an SEC quarterback. There's worse situations in the world. How that situation got worse was Tommy and UCF as a whole thought emotionally when it came to Tommy burned his red shirt last year for 16 passing attempts spread throughout 5 games. Now, looking back at it now, I'm sure Tommy wants that year back. I'm sure UCF Athletics would want that year back. Regardless, that year is gone. So not only did Tommy just have to sit behind and watch the game that he wants to go out and play every day from the sidelines last season, in a season that was up and down. No UCF fan is in love with last season. But now it's looking like at the end of the spring game and as we approach summer workouts and into the fall, now he's not going to be that starting quarterback, and he might not even, as you said, be a quarterback in the future. That's where you burned my red shirt last year, and now I'm going to waste potentially another year of eligibility to be in this program that the future for me is uncertain. I totally respect Tommy's decision. I have no hate towards Tommy at all when it comes to any of this. I have more of an issue with how the UCF football program may have managed that and handled that this last season and this offseason thus far. So I completely understand Tommy's situation with this. Like I said, at first I was pissed off, and now it's kind of like I see both sides of things, but overall, I don't think it was the NIL. I think, we see Mikey and what he's doing at Fresno, and he's in a QB competition with 4 other guys over in Fresno. Maybe the NIL was better for him there, but I don't think this is the case of an NIL deal. I don't think that Tommy goes anywhere and is immediately making that much more money that he would make this drastic of a decision at the start of kind of the second transfer portal portion of the offseason.
Well said. Nick, give your quick thoughts. I mean, I think that was well said. I do agree. And that's why I think the last thing is NIL money, because I think he was probably making a decent amount here. And there were some rumors about him going to Texas State to go with former coach Kinney. So, I mean, to make the jump from UCF to Texas State, when he could probably go play Power 5 football somewhere else, it screams, we don't want you playing quarterback. We want you moved to another position. Are we reading this wrong, or do you think it's simply he wanted to start and JRP clearly looks like clear-cut number 1 out of spring game? Obviously, we didn't see practices, but it seems like JRP is clear-cut number 1 heading into fall camp.
First of all, every quarterback, every player wants to play. And Thomas Castellanos, when he signed to UCF, wasn't he like the highest rated recruit, right, that they ever had at that moment?
He was an 85 or 86 3-star, but he was like the prototypical Gus, quick. But every school that went after him didn't want him playing quarterback. They wanted him as a wide receiver. Yeah,
UCF was one of the top programs that was willing to let him play quarterback, and that was a big draw. This was Gus. This was, if I remember correctly, this was Gus's one of his first recruits that he was able to land, and it was a big deal at the time. And of course he wants to play. I disagree a little bit. I don't know if he can just walk to any Power 5 program that's out there and just play. And with the whole timing of this, he's already behind schedule with everything. Who knows how long he's going to sit in the portal? It's not like he's going to play this year. He's going to be a backup or a third string probably wherever he ends up if it's in the Power 5, in my opinion. And if you're UCF and you're Gus Malzahn, I think that expectations have been pretty high the last 2 years. And I think all things considered, I don't think they've met those expectations. And now when you go to the Big 12, we've talked about this a lot here, that they have to temper those a little bit, especially the fan base, because of the schedule and how much more difficult it's going to be. And Gus has got to give himself the best chance to win. And I think JRP does that right now. And I said this last time I was on, just look at the commitment. And I'm not saying that Thomas Castellanos hasn't done that or anything, but look at the commitment that's out there from John Rice Plumlee. The fact that he's doing the baseball thing and he's doing the football thing. I mean, the viral video of him running from the baseball field to the spring game. And I mean, making sure that he's committing all of his time to everything, right? He could have said, no, this is my baseball season. I'm going to do that. And I'll join y'all in the fall or the summer to do football, right? But he didn't do that. And I think that means something to Gus Malzahn. I truly do. And I think he stood out. He looks like he's more of a refined passer going into this season. He certainly was the standout quarterback in the spring game. So I think that's kind of a case of where it is. I don't think it's NIL or anything like that. I know there's a lot of UCF fans who are outraged by it, and I get it. It's because 5 days prior to this, he got up on the podium in front of everybody and said that he was so excited to compete and be the future of this program. And clearly, 5 days later, he was told something different, and he's out the door. I personally don't lose sleep over it. I really don't. Like you said, he's 5'9". He's 5'9". Of course, in college football, there's a lot of examples of guys who are that stature that make it work. But I don't think that's what this new coaching staff, especially Darren Hinshaw, is really looking for. I think they're looking for more of a refined passer. I don't think Thomas Castellanos fits that bill. And I mean, in the time that I got to see him last year a little bit, there's not really much to go off of there. There's just not. And I think it's a quarterback room that you have options in behind John Rice Plumlee, guys who have experience, like, a Timmy McClain, who I'm probably more high on than you, Sean. And I think he obviously he's the big winner out of this, right? Yeah. Is he bumps up and I'm sure they're going to find some kind of package
snaps
for him.
In the spring game. He went from did not play at all in the spring game to backup QB. He's sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, he's in a great spot, and I honestly would love to see like a little package for him because I thought he showed some kind of promise at USF, to be honest with you. So I think that's a good thing. So I'm just not that outraged by it. I mean, this is college football. This is what happens. There's a lot of surprise guys that hit the portal all the time. They'll land on their feet. Is it ideal to have two quarterbacks go into the portal at the same time? Throwing Mikey Keenan there? No. It's not ideal, but I think they'll be fine. As long as John Rhys Plumlee stays healthy this year, I think they'll be fine.
And that's the thing. I want to make it very clear. My thought, like, when I saw it, I was shocked. I think the reason, and UCF fans have a right to feel this way, right, guys? Because UCF has basically billed him, not just him himself, but like Gus Malzahn, Darren Hinshaw, players, have all billed Tommy as the next guy, the future of the program. And that's been said multiple times. Like, Gus would even go out of his way to boast about how great Tommy's doing. That, I think, is where the UCF fans seeing him transfer. If he was not talked about, if people just shut up and nobody said a word on him, said, oh, Tommy's doing good, hanging in there. He's a true freshman. He's hanging in there, doing good, getting better every day. He transfers out. Let's be real, guys. Nobody's throwing up the words and the things they're saying about this. People are freaking out over, let's be honest here, if they didn't burn the red shirt, a redshirt sophomore, for the most part, who has not, like you said, Nick, has thrown, or in you, Tyler, 17 passes, haven't really put much on tape throwing-wise, getting out of the pocket and running, electric. I mean, he's proven that. But we saw some of his incapabilities in the championship game, which I said you can't put that much pressure on him and take that with a grain of salt, right? You got thrown into the biggest game of the year, biggest stage as a true freshman. But Tyler, the amount of hate for the program, I understand where you're saying for the coaching staff, hold them accountable for using your words in a certain way, saying this kid's the future, and then him transferring and being like, okay, how else would you want me to react? But when you look at the grand scheme of things, quarterback room moving forward, yes, there's a little gray area. Because after this year, you've got, Dylan Risk, Trujillo coming in after this season, and then you have Timmy McClain. I think this could be two things. It could be a great opportunity to go get one of the top transfer portal quarterbacks after this season, whoever that may be. Or at the worst, you have Timmy McClain, who has had one season under his belt as a true freshman, has proven he could do a lot. But what kind of do you say to those fans that are kind of just acting like the world's about to end, where you have your QB1, and you were going to have your QB1 anyway? All this changes is who your QB2 is this year, and then who your QB1 is moving forward.
Right. I liked what you said about why everyone is so pissed off, or why certain UCF fans are pissed off by it, is because of how highly the coaching staff, the players had spoke about Tommy Castellanos. Because you're right, we haven't seen a ton of we don't have a ton to judge based off other than those comments. So that's where, when you look at the season that JRP had last year, and as I mentioned, that was a roller coaster the entire season long. You didn't know what version of JRP you were going to get week in and week out. So you can look at it as, okay, this is an 18-year-old who has this high praise that he is the future. He's going to be running this offense down the line as UCF is entering the Big 12 and is establishing themselves in the Big 12 over the next couple of years. Then you have this 22-year-old in JRP who his best football honestly might be behind him in certain flashes of last season. If we get the games where JRP was throwing for hardly single-digit attempts and it was all running the ball, and teams were kind of able to scheme him out of that, to take him out of the game completely at times, to have a quarterback who's afraid to throw the ball, or he's not getting the play call to throw the ball. That's where some people will look at that and say, if you have two guys that are equal, or even if the younger guy is a little bit younger, you rock with that younger guy in this situation because he has the whole future ahead of him. He has 3 years of UCF football in front of him. So that's where it's tough to let a guy like Tommy walk, because we have no idea what his future could have been in the Big 12 in his junior and senior year as UCF's quarterback. On the flip side of that, though, there's always going to be quarterbacks out there in the portal. And this is just the portal giveth and the portal taketh. Like Mark Daniels said it this morning, 96.9 The Game. Like it goes both ways, and you can't get too high or too low about it either way. We're seeing it even with Cincinnati this year. Emory Jones is going to transfer in from Arizona State and take Ben Bryant's spot, who Ben Bryant was a Luke Fickell guy who started at Cincinnati. Fickell said, listen, we're going to rock with Desmond Ridder, and that worked out pretty well for them. So go play elsewhere. He goes to Eastern Michigan for, I think it was a season or two, transfers back in, becomes a starting quarterback at Cincinnati, and then Emory Jones is the transfer quarterback that's a better quarterback than Ben Bryant on paper. And so this stuff is going to happen. So that's where you can't get too high or too low on it. This is Big 12 football. That's the thing. UCF isn't in the American anymore. It's Big 12 football. We're going to get other Big 12, SEC, Pac-12 quarterbacks that are going to want to transfer in. It's not like we're fending to try to compete with the top dogs. You said it on the podcast earlier this week. UCF is emerging as one of the top dogs. I mean, in the state of Florida, we've established that. And then outside of that, in a couple of years, we could be a powerhouse of the Big 12. So there's always going to be that quarterback to come in. You can't stress too hard on Tommy leaving, but you can certainly be upset about it with, like I said, you take a guy who has the whole world in front of him, then another guy who might be living in his glory days, and when we're trying to establish ourselves this year.
And also, by the way, going back to 2013, so a full decade, there's been 11 quarterbacks that have come in, and there's been 11 quarterbacks who have gone bye-bye to the transfer portal. And there's some big names in there. I'm sure a lot of people were outraged when Dylan Gabriel went to the portal, no? Everybody was wondering what was the quarterback situation going to look like on the flip side of Dylan Gabriel. Or how about somebody as beloved as Mackenzie Milton? How could he enter the portal? Now, we all understood why. But my point is, this has happened at this school for a decade. It happens at every school. And like to your point, Tyler, you're in the Big 12 now. There's always going to be like 100-something quarterbacks in the portal every single year. And all of it is so situation-based. One guy doesn't work here, he works there. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I don't think Thomas Castellanos is this out-of-world talent, right? This can't-miss prospect. That's just my opinion on it so far. I don't think he's a can't-miss guy that I'm going to lose sleep over because he's not in my program anymore.
Right. That's the other thing, real quick, Sean, is you mentioned Dylan Gabriel, and I know it's two different situations, but it's still a good person to bring up. But with Dylan Gabriel, he was getting out of UCF to try to go on to something bigger and better, to make a push to get his name in the NFL draft and get him looks that way. Tommy is not going, you mentioned it earlier, Tommy is not, if he is going Power 5, he is not starting at quarterback, and he might not even be a quarterback. Like you said, this late in the process, this is the highest level of football that he is going to be a starting or get the most reps at quarterback this season. He had the spot as backup lined up. If JRP goes out, Tommy was going to be the starting quarterback for a Big 12 team. He's going to have to transfer outside of the Power 5 in order to get that level of experience under his belt this season alone.
Well, and that's why I agree with you both. I mean, I think that's why I think it ultimately is, I do think he could play for a Power 5 program. If he went to a Power 5 program, it would not be to play quarterback. These Power 5 programs were wanting him at receiver, and you could see why. The speed alone warrants a look at receiver. I think Gus recruited him and said, you are my type of quarterback. We'll bring you in at quarterback. We're the only school that's offering you that. He comes here, and they have had 2 years or a full year and 2 springs to get a good look. And clearly, this is, again, just our opinion. We have no idea what the real reason is, right? Until Tommy comes out and says it, we have no idea. It's just very fishy to me that knowing that if everything was going the way that it looked like on the surface, he was your starting quarterback next year, right? After JRP left, he's the next guy. So why leave? And by all accounts, I think we all agree he's going to a non-Power 5 program. Most likely, he's going to go play quarterback somewhere, and it's not going to be at the Power 5 level. again, Texas State seems like the logical option here. Somebody told him, we do not view you as a quarterback. Is that Darren Hinshaw? Is that Darren Hinshaw being the new OC saying, this is the way we're going with our offense? We need a pocket passer that can get out and run? Because unfortunately, again, like I said at the beginning, Tommy is get out of the pocket and see what I can do after that. He's not a let me sit in the pocket and have 350-pound defensive linemen come try and crush me. Now I can get out of it. But I think some of the problems last year with JRP was he wouldn't keep his eyes on the field. He would get out so often. And I will say, I agree with both of you that just in the spring game, again, we have not seen the spring practice, so we have no idea. But I will say in the spring game, you saw some key differences in the way JRP was manipulating the pocket, the way that he was looking at certain receivers, keeping his eye on one and shifting to another, where his feet were, which was huge last year. If you watched his feet were not in the right spot at all. I think Hinshaw has really come in and developed him the right way, and he's only going to get better. And we'll see what can happen in the fall with him. But for UCF fans specifically to act like the world is going to end because we lost a 19-year-old to the portal, I'm going to keep it real with you. And let's be 100% honest here. We've talked about recruits. And Nick, I want to hear from you too. We talked about the recruits that have been coming in over the last year. UCF is changing in recruiting. They are going to, every year now, probably break the record from the previous year in recruiting. Right? Now, Nick has followed Florida State for a while. Florida State always has a top recruiting class. UCF's not close to where Florida State is. But the fact of the matter is, when you're getting guys like Tavion Swint to commit 18 months, probably going to be a 5-star running back at the end of the day. 18 months prior. You're telling me, and granted, we already have the quarterback for 2024. UCF, mark my words, is going to start recruiting some of the top quarterback prospects in 2025 and 2026. And I would not be shocked if UCF got a top 25 quarterback in one of those classes. So for UCF fans that are like, we just lost the future of our program, no offense, but show me why you believe that. Show me did you watch all the practices? Do you know why he was the future? Just because you hear it doesn't mean it's legit. There's got to be a reason. It wasn't like he was a 5-star quarterback coming in. I mean, kid was an 85 3-star that he only got an offer to come play quarterback here. So Nick, you kind of see recruiting. We all see recruiting, how recruiting's gone, especially in Florida. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like it or not, UCF's the 4th best recruiting school in the state. And they're going up there. Like, they're moving. They're becoming better. They're getting top prospects. What do you say to, I don't want to say to the fans, because I know how you feel certain times with certain UCF fans, Nick. But you see the way recruiting's going. Is it illogical to think that in a year or two, UCF can nab one of those top 20 quarterback prospects? Because I don't think it's that out of hand or unrealistic to get one of those guys.
No, it's not. And I know it's early right now in the recruiting process for 2024, and a lot's going to change. But at this moment, if you look at the top 25 recruiting classes, UCF is inside that top 25. They're one of 2 programs in the Big 12, the other one being Texas Tech, that's in there. So this is a program that's ascending, right? We got all these phases going on around campus. It's going to take, 5, 10, whatever years to get it done. That's going to be a big deal to all this. I don't know if we're ever getting this freaking lazy river.
Get the lazy river in there right now,
bro.
I don't know
we are going to be 30 years old. Like, think about that. It got announced when we were all in college. We're all now gone, and it might not even be built until we're all 30 years old. That's ridiculous. Yeah. But keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. But no, you're good. My point being there is this is a ascending program from a recruiting standpoint, what it has to offer. And going to the Big 12, can you get a top 25 quarterback? Well, here's my answer to that is hell yeah, you can, because this is a quarterback friendly offense, number one. And number two, this is a quarterback friendly league. This is the scoring league around college football. It always has been. I don't care that Oklahoma and Texas are leaving. There's a lot of talent in this conference right now. I thought they were probably the second best conference, I think, top to bottom this past year next to the SEC. And I think even without Oklahoma and Texas there, I think they're going to be really good, especially with the teams that they added in there, including UCF, if they get it going. So you put that all together, of course you can get a top 25 guy to come here. I don't see why you can't. So again, why the outrage? Why the outrage? Everybody just needs to relax. The fun word today is relax, okay? Fans need to relax. Take a chill, just chill for a little bit. Thomas Castellanos, you probably needed to relax too, right? Barring them telling him that we want you to play receiver. I mean, being number 2 at a Power 5 program with the opportunity, like Tyler said, for 3 years to start potentially, that's not a great opportunity. And you already said it out loud, a week ago that you were okay with that. In fact, you were excited for that.
That's why it has to be the coaches told him, we don't want you to be quarterback anymore.
Exactly. It has to be that because if not, I look at this whole situation completely differently. I look at it completely differently. If there was no conversation had about we want you to play receiver and all that, and this was as simple as, hey, we can't guarantee you playing time, and he did a complete 180 flip, or he's just saying this to the media to put on a good face, which could entirely be true for all we know, then I look at him as it's a little impatient, in my opinion. I mean,
right.
Sometimes you got to stay the process.
Right. And I mean, in all fairness, Mikey Keene did say 5 days before the conference championship game that he was ready to go. Let's go win a championship. And again, it's showing face. It's being it's showing good face to the world and to the media, which is something that every organization, every program is going to preach. They don't want to cause, especially at UCF, they don't want to cause that kind of conflict to say, I'm going to be the number 2. I'm freaking out of here. No, UCF is going to stay classy. And then it just ends up happening like this. The argument against that conversation was had, and I'm not saying I disagree. That is a very valid point and something that most likely is what happened. And in Tommy's head, it could be also, like I mentioned Ben Bryant earlier, he was, again, Cincinnati wasn't a Power 5 school at that point, but he transferred out on the year that he was going to be the number 2 behind Desmond Ridder, and that team went on to the college football playoffs. And then Bryant transferred back in from Eastern Michigan, and he had the starting gig at a team not in the Big 12 yet, but a team heading there. So it could be in Tommy's mind too. He still has enough years of eligibility under his belt, being so young, that he can go and start potentially somewhere. We've seen how hard it's been for Mikey to win the job going to Fresno State, but there are schools out there that Tommy probably could win out a starting quarterback job. He balls out this year, maybe even another year, and then he becomes one of those top-end quarterbacks looking to transfer up from a mid-level school. So that could be the other side of things that Tommy could be seeing in his head. It's tough. We've all said it in this podcast. If you're at this level, you want to play. If you're at any level of sports, whether you're 5 years old or you're 50 years old in a freaking softball league, a Tuesday night softball league, you want to play. You're playing for the love of the game. So to tell a player as talented athletically as Tommy is, we sat you out last year and we were keeping this year kind of foggy. We weren't sure what was going to happen, kind of leading him on because he's not the type of player that you want to lose. It's tough for him to sit out 2 years in a row. So it could be in his head, you know what? I'm going to get out of here. Best of luck to you all. I'm going to go ball out at the mid-major level. And then in a couple of years, hopefully I'll either be back here or playing you guys for a conference championship. That could be the other mindset of Tommy.
So let's act like that's true. All right. So let's assume that it wasn't UCF saying we don't want you to play QB. Let's just say it was Tommy said, you know what? I need to go play. I can't sit out this year. UCF then is left, and this is just personal opinions, right? At the end of the day, we don't know ultimately how these guys can perform. We might have the next great UCF quarterback on our bench right now, and we have no idea. But from the grand scheme of things, Timmy McClain played 1 year as a freshman, had flashes, but if we're being honest, it's not like he was going to go start in the Big 12 or the ACC, right? Came here, can perform. I think he can perform. We just don't know if he's going to be that next guy. Dylan Risk. He's a true freshman. Didn't go through spring. No idea how he's going to be. And then Riley Trujillo. He's the 24 quarterback. UCF, and this is why, Tyler, I think it would make sense if he's like, I want to go, just get reps and I want to go play. But logically, and this is why I agree with Nick, and I think we all agree, if he did this, I understand the logic, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense. You wait a year and you are that Power 5 starter. Like, UCF did not set themselves up. Like, again, the way I viewed like Dylan Risk, I think he can be really good. I like his intangibles. I don't think UCF is assuming he's the next guy. Like, I think they signed a quarterback in the class, and depending on what happens in your quarterback room, you have those options. I think UCF, the way that they recruited the last couple years, kind of went all in on Tommy. Like, that's the way it looked with the way that they were recruiting. Because if not, then you should have went after some of those like higher top end quarterbacks, and they offered a couple. But that's why it's like Tommy would listen. You got to do what's best for you. I don't think anybody's stupid for doing anything. But if you knew you're the next guy and they gave you every single notion of, listen, you got one more year, kid. And he also played in 5-6 games last season. It's not like he didn't play at all. Like, he played reps. He had reps. You're telling me if you came to me tomorrow and said, Sean, you're going to sit for an entire year and then you're going to be the starting quarterback of the UCF Knights in the Big 12, I'm not leaving to go play for Texas State. Like, I'll sit my year. What happened? JRP was injury prone. Ended last year. You're telling me he's not going to get injured again? Like, God forbid. Guess what? You're now the starter. So that's why it's like, I think it's a logical thought process. Both things could happen, right? But the way it's looking, and that's why I think it's the most logical thing, is it does not make any sense for him to say, I'm going to go get reps for 1 year at Texas State, if that's where he's going, when I could sit out 1 year and be Power 5 national stage, playing some of the best teams in college football with some of the best skill players in college football around me with the way UCF's recruiting.
Well, you have to consider, I mean, you look at Mikey Keene, and there's a coaching change involved with this too, but he was the guy as a freshman, and then he gets to his sophomore year, and here comes JRP. You know, that again, there's coaching change involved there. So it's a little bit of a different situation.
Change.
And injury. You're right. But then, so UCF has been saying, Tommy is the quarterback of the future. So say, yes, he sits out this year. We don't know what transfer is going to be sitting there, what Alabama second, third string guy who isn't going to get his opportunities at an SEC school who, let's face it, I mean, UCF has been fighting this little brother thing since we have been relevant in college football. We're going to get the little brother treatment when it comes to the Big 12 a bit, just because we are one of the new heads in the Big 12. It's going to take time to establish ourselves. I wouldn't be shocked if we go out there and have a 500 season next year. We'll be outraged, awesome. But I'll have to realize. 500. Right, exactly. Like, but we're not going to see these most likely 2 or 3 loss season next year in our first year in the Big 12. This is going to take time. But with that, like I said, you don't know what transfer is going to be out there. So say Tommy stays, and then next spring rolls around and this quarterback, and I can't name any particulars out there. Think about how many top end quarterbacks there are in college football. And with how active the transfer portal is now in today's college football, and with NIL going around, there's no guarantees ever. So to say that he's going, one more year and then you're the guy, how safe can you feel if you are Tommy Castellanos in that situation?
Yeah, I'll even put it out here because I actually have these. I pulled up the transfer portal rankings from On3 because they do it, and I wanted to see. There you go. And I wanted to see where Tommy fits in the recruiting or in the transfer portal rankings for quarterback, where they had him. He's at 54. He's at 54. Like, I mean, do y'all recall Jordan McLeod, who was at USF for a little bit and he went to Arizona? Like, now he's back in the portal. Okay, now I'm talking about a USF quarterback who transferred out of there, and he's ahead of Thomas Castellanos in this rankings, just for perspective there. Okay, Thomas Castellanos is not going to a Power 5 program.
No.
It's not happening. And my other point there is, there's a lot of quarterbacks who are in the portal. There's probably going to be more that continue to go in before we get to the closing of it again. Who's to say UCF doesn't add one during this cycle?
Exactly.
During this late cycle.
Florida's open. Florida just said after their spring game, we're looking for a quarterback. They're encouraging guys. They are. They're in a messed up situation. But no, that's
Florida
the thing.
will take somebody off the street at this point. I mean, Florida's.
This is the second portion of the transfer portal season. You have kind of leading up to the spring, from the end of season to spring, and then after spring, leading up to summer workout. So the portal is about to go crazy. I mean, it's been crazy in the first part. It's going to continue to be crazy. So you just never know what can be out there. And if you don't necessarily have a chance to play, you can't prove, and you have practice and whatnot. But when it comes to actual game reps and experience, if you don't have the chance to play, you can't prove necessarily why you are that top dog.
Yeah. I mean, the name that comes to mind that's like, now again, this is all a hypothetical, right? Grayson McCall. Right? I think Coastal Carolina QB. You're telling me that if UCF, if he entered the portal, if we needed a quarterback this offseason, you're telling me that we couldn't go get Grayson McCall to come to UCF? You're crazy. I mean, I think you can get one of those top, like a guy that really performs extremely well, that it's a top quarterback. He ended up going back to Coastal. Like, I am sure that if UCF has a wide opening gap, a quarterback, the chance to play with Gus, I'm sure this offense is going to play pretty well. You're going to have, again, as many skill position players as you want to work with. If I am a portal quarterback and UCF comes calling, I'm sorry, but there's not many other better places than it's going to be next year. Like, okay, I have to compete with a redshirt sophomore, a redshirt junior, and a true freshman for the job. Okay, I'm getting the job. Like, so UCF, like, for UCF fans that are stressing out, hey, let's focus on the first year in the Big 12. You've got your starter. If you need a second, you've got Timmy right behind him that I'm sure can do really good things and is a Gus guy by all accounts. Let's focus on doing good year one in the Big 12. And listen, you see the way recruiting's going. It's going freaking awesome. It's amazing to see some of the guys that UCF is in on. Everything's going to be fine. One guy does not change your program. It takes a village, not one guy. If JRP were to transfer out tomorrow, then I would say next season's going to look really bleak and we all need to just, because that would be rough. But I think we all need to chill. We're going to be okay. Drink some wine, sit on your couch, and relax. We have way too many months until football season to be stressing out this hard. I mean, damn, it was not even a game that we're blowing up Twitter. All right, final thoughts. Tyler, I'll start with you. Great having you on. We got to get you on more often. I mean, always fun.
Yeah, man. I'm always here. Well, I will always extend the pod way longer than what you're originally planning if you throw us three
literally
together.
It's a recipe for disaster.
But yeah, so closing thoughts on this whole thing. Like I said, I had a lot of time. I had excuse me. I had
good talk. Give him some time, folks.
Sorry about that. Had a lot of time. I had a 4-hour drive today that all I did was think in my head, how does this affect UCF football this year? How does it affect it in the long term? What was this? Is this the end of the world for UCF football? And the answer is no. As we've laid it out, if anything, we've proven that Tommy is not a Power 5 quarterback just through our discussions this year, or in this podcast. So no, it is a bummer. From everything that we have seen from Tommy, he is a great kid. If you have any hatred towards Tommy, you are wrong. If you have any hatred towards anyone that enters the transfer portal, you are wrong. These are 18 to 22-year-old kids for the most part. They're trying to make the decisions that are going to have the best influence on their life, in their personal life, in their athletic careers, and all of that. So don't get too high or too low when it comes to the transfer portal. Keep your expectations in check. Keep things realistic. And UCF is going to be in a fine spot next year and is in good hands with the future, with the transfer portal, with how well recruitment has been going. UCF football is still on the rise. Yeah,
for anybody that's going on Twitter and like talking junk to a 19-year-old kid for transferring. Again, a couple months ago I have flack for calling them not fans. You're not a fan. Like, if you're an adult, I feel sorry for you. Nick, final thoughts on this one player getting a 45-minute episode, leaving the Knights after never being our starter in the program ever.
No player, again, is bigger than the program. No player is, in my opinion, replaceable in the modern college football world with the portal, and that the way this program is going in recruiting. So to echo what I've been saying, I'm not losing any sleep over it. Thomas Castellanos can make his own decision. That's that. Do I think that it was probably maybe in his best interest to stay? Potentially. I thought so at first, but again, there was probably that conversation, like we mentioned, where they had different plans for him. He made his decision. So again, no, everybody just relax. And again, how does it relate to this first year going to the Big 12? How much of an impact were we counting on Thomas Castellanos to give us this first year? And I think the answer would probably be minimal, truthfully. And if everything goes as I think it will, I don't think anybody's in a few months, nobody's going to be talking about Thomas Castellanos when we get to week 1. Nobody is going to talk about it whatsoever, in my opinion. And I think that's the way it'll be.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, JRP season 2. We're hoping for all good.
I'm all in on it, by the way.
Dude, I'm sold.
I've had a complete roundabout on JRP.
I'm ready to hop right back on that roller coaster. Get me on. Let's go.
Sign Nick's future baby, JRP. Get them kisses and pens. Sharpie's out. Sign his baby.
See, I'm hopping on it now. Like, we're gonna get there, and like it's gonna be really high the first 2 games, maybe the first game, and then that Boise game, that scares me because then I can fall right back like Louisville. It'd be like, oh, what did we get ourselves into? And then it's another 8 games of pure hell. But
I'll catch y'all in October. I'll be preaching for McLean to get in there. I'm not afraid to throw some performance
Tyler,
shade
we're gonna
at JRP.
need you on sooner rather than later because these next, I don't know, 3-4 months are gonna be complete torture on this podcast. We're going to have to really come up with some great topics to discuss because the news in the next couple months is going to be minimal unless, God forbid, the Pac-12 disbands and the Big 12 gets some schools. Then we'll be fine for at least a month. But no, guys, Tyler, we're gonna have you on soon. Thank you as always for joining, guys. That'll do it. You get your 2 episodes. Enjoy your Saturday. Hopefully we can get this special edition thing sorted out. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about, but it was supposed to be yesterday, but we'll get it figured out. Thank you as always for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, do all the stuff you always do. The support has been amazing, and hopefully we can just keep growing into our first season in the Big 12. Guys, it's been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you next week.